Now, in southern China, scientists have discovered ancient forests with animals and plants they thought were extinct in several sinkholes hidden deep in the mountains.
It began with a discovery that no one could explain. In the mountains of southern China, a group of engineers stumbled upon something that looked like a wound in the earth itself, a hole so vast it seemed to swallow light. At first, they thought it was just another sinkhole. China has thousands of them scattered across its karst landscapes. But this was different. When the first drone flew over the site, its camera captured what looked like an endless shadow, a chasm that plunged nearly 200 meters into pure darkness. Even under the midday sun, the bottom was invisible. Locals called it Heaven's Mouth, a name that sounded poetic until the scientists realized how accurate it really was. For generations, villagers had told stories about this place. They said birds would vanish when they flew too low, that cool air rose from its depths even on the hottest summer days, and that sometimes at night, strange sounds echoed from below, like whispers from another world. Most people dismissed it as folklore, but now, standing at the edge and staring into the darkness, even the most skeptical engineer felt a chill crawl up their spine. They tried to explore it with drones equipped with lights and high-resolution cameras. Every time, the same thing happened. As soon as the machines dropped too deep, the signal vanished. Their lights dimmed. The darkness swallowed everything. It was as if the pit refused to be seen. When the engineers finally decided to lower themselves inside, they had no idea that what waited below would rewrite everything scientists thought they knew about life on Earth, because at the bottom of that impossible hole was a world no human had ever seen before. When the engineers reached the site, they finally saw it up close, and the sight left them speechless. What looked from above like a dark stain on the earth was actually a gaping wound in stone, wide enough to fit a 60-story skyscraper inside. The pit stretched over 300 meters long, 150 meters wide, and nearly 200 meters deep. Even from the edge, you couldn't see the bottom, only a sea of shadow, broken by faint waves of cool mist that drifted upward like breath from another world. Locals stood nearby, watching quietly. To them, this wasn't just a hole in the ground. It was something ancient, something sacred. They called it Heaven's Mouth, a name passed down through centuries of whispered stories. Some claim birds vanished whenever they crossed above it. Others swore that small tremors rattled their homes whenever the winds howled through the pit. The scientists laughed it off at first, until their instruments began to confirm the impossible. Temperature sensors showed strange fluctuations rising from the depths, like the earth itself was breathing. Air samples revealed unusually high oxygen levels, far richer than the thin mountain air above. It made no sense. How could a lifeless hole produce oxygen? The engineers decided to drain the water that had pooled inside, hoping to get a clearer view of what lay beneath. It was a massive operation. Industrial pumps, laser scanners, and a full team of experts from across China. As the water level slowly dropped, something began to take shape through the mist. At first, it looked like a shimmer of color, a faint, ghostly green at the edge of the darkness. Was it an illusion, a reflection, or was something alive down there? The team leaned over the edge, watching the color spread as the fog thinned, and that's when they realized this wasn't just another geological marvel. They hadn't uncovered a sinkhole. They'd found a secret world, one that might have been hiding for thousands of years, untouched by human hands. But to understand how such a place could exist at all, the scientists needed to solve a deeper mystery. What kind of land could literally eat itself alive? When the fog finally cleared, what they saw didn't look real. It was like peering into another planet, one untouched by time, sunlight, or human presence. At the bottom of that massive sinkhole lay a lush, thriving forest. Towering trees stretched more than 100 feet high, their leaves glowing a faint emerald beneath filtered light. Giant ferns spread across the floor, and thick vines crawled up the rock walls like veins, carrying life through a stone body. The scientists stared, speechless. How could something so vibrant exist hundreds of meters below the surface with barely any sunlight reaching it? They descended carefully, ropes and harnesses swaying over the abyss. As they lowered themselves deeper, the air changed, thicker, cooler, and strangely humid, filled with the scent of earth and life. When their boots touched the ground, the silence was almost unreal. No city noise, no wind wind, just the faint rustle of leaves that hadn't been disturbed in millennia. It was an entire ecosystem hidden from the modern world, home to species no one had ever seen before. Some plants glowed faintly in the dim light, producing their own bioluminescence. Others grew in shapes that defied logic, twisting like spirals of green glass. And then came the first sign of motion. Pale wing flickered between the trees, gone before anyone could focus. Moments later, another flash. This time, a small bird-like creature with skin instead of feathers, gliding silently through the mist. The lead biologist whispered, almost afraid to speak. This place, it's prehistoric. Every sample, every observation pointed to an impossible conclusion. The forest was older than civilization itself. It had evolved in isolation, sealed off by the earth long before humans learned to walk upright. And the deeper they explored, the stranger it became. The plants seemed to move subtly toward the light of their flashlights. Some even reacted to sound, trembling when the scientists spoke. The pit wasn't just alive, it was aware. But the most shocking discovery was yet to come, because beneath the green floor, their scanners detected something massive. Hollow chambers leading even deeper underground, and inside one of them, something was moving. First, they thought the sensors were malfunctioning. The data coming in from their scanners didn't make sense. A slow, rhythmic pulse beneath the forest floor, as if something large was shifting under the earth itself. The team checked the readings again. Then again, same result. The ground beneath them wasn't solid. It was moving. The lead engineer radioed the surface, confirmed seismic stability. Are we getting tremors? But the reply came back clean. No earthquakes, no geological activity. So what was it? They placed vibration sensors directly into the soil. The readings were faint but consistent, a pattern, almost like breathing. The frequency was too slow for any known machine or natural phenomena. And then came the sound. A low, distant rumble, deep enough to be felt in their chest before it was heard by their ears. The trees trembled slightly. Dust rained down from the cliffs above. One of the younger researchers, barely out of grad school, whispered, "Is it alive?" No one answered. They followed the scanner signal toward the eastern wall of the sinkhole. There, half hidden behind a curtain of vines, they found a massive opening, a tunnel, carved not by man or machine, but by something ancient. The rock was smooth, almost melt, as if shaped by heat or pressure beyond anything they'd ever seen. The deeper they went, the more unnatural it felt. Their flashlights revealed markings on the walls, symmetrical lines, looping curves, and shapes that looked eerily deliberate. Nature doesn't draw straight lines, one of them muttered. Something about the tunnel felt wrong, too perfect, too intentional. And just when they were about to turn back, they heard it again, that same rumble. But this time, it wasn't distant. It was coming from inside the tunnel. The air temperature dropped, the lights flickered. For a split second, something in the darkness reflected back at them. Two small points of light, staring from deep within the passage. Then the rumble grew louder, and the ground began to shake. The team ran, scrambling toward the rope line, hearts pounding as the forest itself seemed to come alive. Leaves shuddered, branches snapped. The once silent paradise erupted into chaos. By the time they reached the surface, one thing was clear. Whatever was down there wasn't finished, and it had just woken up. By the time they reached the surface, the team was shaken, exhausted, covered in dust, and drenched in silence. No one spoke during the ascent. No one even dared to look back at the dark mouth yawning beneath. For days, the pit remained sealed. Equipment was pulled up, data drives locked away. The officials overseeing the project ordered a full analysis and total secrecy. But the real shock came later, when the footage from the helmet cameras was reviewed. At first, everything looked normal. The descent, the fog, the glowing forest, the tunnel. But when they slowed down the feed, something strange appeared between the frames. A movement. Not human, not animal, shifting just behind the team as they entered the passage. It wasn't the reflection of a flashlight. It wasn't a shadow. It was something tall, almost skeletal, moving in a way that defied the rhythm of living creatures. Frame by frame, it became clearer. A figure, thin limbs, elongated head, motion so smooth it didn't even seem to disturb the dust. One of the analysts paused the video. "Do you see that?" Nobody answered for several seconds. Then the lead scientist leaned closer and said quietly, "Enhance the frame." When the image sharpened, what they saw sent chills through the entire room. Etched into the tunnel wall, right behind the figure, were markings identical to ancient carvings found thousands of kilometers away in Yunnan stone forest, where myths spoke of gods descending from the ground, not the sky. It was impossible. The carvings matched exactly. The same symbols, the same spiral patterns, as if whatever lived down there had been there long before humanity itself. The discovery should have made global headlines, but it didn't. Within days, the site was restricted. The footage was archived. The officials overseeing the project signed documents they weren't allowed to discuss. Officially, the project was suspended for safety reasons. Unofficially, it vanished. But not everyone stayed silent. Months later, one of the junior scientists uploaded a blurred still image to a private forum, a single frame showing the glowing vines, the smooth tunnel walls, and the faint outline of that figure in the background. The post was deleted within hours, but not before it spread. And from that moment on, whispers began to surface. Whispers that maybe the Earth didn't just hide the past beneath its surface, maybe it was still alive. Weeks passed. The pit was sealed off under heavy security, satellite imagery blurred, and all access quietly revoked. The world above moved on, unaware that beneath the quiet hills of Guangxi, something ancient was still breathing. The team members were relocated, their work reassigned. Some stayed silent, bound by contracts and fear. Others couldn't shake what they'd seen: the glowing forest, the moving shadows, and the feeling that the Earth itself was somehow aware of them. One researcher, in a private journal later leaked online, wrote, "We didn't discover it, it discovered us." The words were simple, but they carried a weight no one could ignore. Months later, locals reported strange phenomena near the area: soft tremors that came without warning, faint humming sounds at night, and patches of ground where new plants were growing faster than anything seen before, plants that glowed faintly under moonlight. It was as if whatever lived beneath the Earth had begun to wake and spread. Scientists still debate what the Guangxi sinkhole truly is: a geological wonder, a biological anomaly, or something older than both. Some say it's proof that evolution doesn't only happen on the surface. Others whisper about things that predate evolution itself. But one fact remains: in the heart of the Earth, far below the light of the sun, life exists. Untouched, unmeasured, and perhaps unaware that we found it. And maybe that's for the best, because if the world beneath us ever decides to reach back up, we might finally learn what's been watching us from below all along. Just when the engineers thought they'd seen it all, one of the divers noticed something strange near the far wall of the sinkhole: a faint stream of bubbles escaping through a narrow gap in the limestone. At first, it looked like simple water movement, but when they placed a light inside the opening, it revealed something that shouldn't have been there: a tunnel. The passage was small, barely wide enough for one person to fit through, and covered in jagged rock. Yet, the air current coming from inside was unmistakable. That meant one thing: there was space beyond it, and possibly another chamber. The team halted all other operations. Cameras were redirected, sensors were recalibrated, everyone focused on that mysterious gap that seemed to breathe. The lead engineer, Dr. Liang, later said that moment felt like the sinkhole itself was alive, as if it wanted us to know there was more. Over the next 48 hours, a specialized micro drone was lowered into the tunnel. The feed was unstable at first, flickering between static and total darkness. Then, as the drone crawled deeper, something caught the light: smooth, geometric patterns carved into the rock, perfect lines, angles that nature doesn't make. "Stop! Zoom in!" Dr. Liang's voice broke to silence in the control room. On the screen, ancient symbols began to take shape, patterns resembling early pictographs, but unlike anything seen in local records. They weren't random, they were arranged in sequences, repeating, spiraling toward what appeared to be a stone door buried beneath layers of sediment. The team knew they were no longer dealing with a simple geological formation, but the real question was, who made it, and why hide it so deep beneath the Earth? As the drone pressed forward, the passage opened into a small cavern, and there, in the center, lay a pool of perfectly clear water. Floating above it, strands of phosphorescent algae emitted a faint blue light, painting the walls in surreal patterns. It looked almost otherworldly. No one spoke for several minutes. Then, one of the scientists whispered what everyone was thinking: "This doesn't look natural." What they didn't yet know was that this hidden passage was just the beginning, because within that chamber, under those glowing walls, lay something that would completely rewrite what they thought they knew about the sinkhole and the civilization that might have existed there. When the first human diver entered the passage 2 days later, the world above had no idea what was happening below. The team had sealed off the site, cutting all live feeds to prevent leaks. Only a handful of people knew what they were about to explore, a hidden chamber that seemed deliberately concealed for centuries. The diver moved slowly, guiding himself through the narrow stone corridor, following the faint blue light reflecting off the submerged algae. As he approached the end of the tunnel, the signal from his body camera flickered, then cleared again, revealing a sight that left the entire control room silent. The walls were covered in carvings, not random scratches or weathered erosion marks, but organized, intelligent inscriptions. They depicted long, winding symbols, celestial shapes, and would appear to be primitive representations of people standing beneath something enormous, something circular, descending from above. It wasn't just art, it was a message. Dr. Liang ordered still frames taken for analysis. When the team enhanced the image contrast, they noticed something even more astonishing. The figures weren't holding tools or weapons. They were holding what looked like orbs of light. The carvings told a story, a timeline of sorts. First, the arrival of something from the sky. Then, the birth of massive forests. Then, the creation of what looked like underground temples buried intentionally deep within the earth. But it was the final carving that stopped them cold. It showed the same massive sinkhole, identical in shape, with a group of small figures standing around its edge, just as the engineers were doing now. It was as if whoever carved these walls had seen this moment coming. For hours, the team debated what it meant. Some claimed it was an ancient prophecy. Others said it was coincidence. But the deeper they looked, the clearer it became. This chamber wasn't a natural formation. It was designed. Beneath the carvings, they found what looked like a sealed stone slab, roughly 2 meters long. The rock around it had been smoothed and shaped by human hands. Sensors showed a hollow space underneath, possibly a tomb or even a storage chamber. Before they could proceed, the drone feed began to glitch again. Static filled the screen, and then, for a single frame, the image froze on something impossible. A faint light flickering beneath the stone slab, pulsing like a heartbeat. That was the moment Dr. Liang ordered everyone out of the chamber. No one spoke as the team resurfaced, gasping for air. What they had seen wasn't supposed to exist, but it did, and it was buried thousands of feet below a sinkhole that had already defied every known law of nature. And yet, the biggest discovery was still waiting for them just a few feet beneath that mysterious slab. For nearly a week, the team debated what to do with the sealed slab. Every test, every scan, every seismic reading told the same story. There was something inside, but no one could agree on whether opening it was worth the risk. Some feared a collapse, others feared contamination, but deep down, everyone was thinking the same thing. What if it wasn't empty? On the 7th night, under the glare of floodlights, the decision was made. The chamber would be reopened. Only essential personnel were allowed below, and communication lines were rerouted through encrypted channels. Whatever they were about to find, they didn't want the world to see it. Not yet. As the divers descended into the hidden chamber once again, they found everything exactly as they'd left it. Silent, still, untouched. The slab, however, seemed different. The faint pulsing light beneath it was brighter now, steady, rhythmic, almost like it was waiting. They set up precision drills and began cutting carefully along the slab's edge. Every vibration echoed through the stone walls, resonating like distant thunder. When the final segment loosened, the slab shifted slightly, and that's when the chamber changed. The water temperature dropped instantly. Sensors went haywire. The blue phosphorescent algae began to flicker, glowing and dimming in chaotic pulses. And then the slab cracked open. A burst of pressurized air escaped, followed by a faint shimmer of golden dust. Camera zoomed in. Inside the cavity lay a metallic object covered in layers of mineral sediment, yet perfectly preserved. It wasn't bone. It wasn't stone. It was something else entirely. The divers retrieved it carefully and brought it to the surface for analysis. Under the microscopes, the truth hit them harder than they expected. The object was made of an alloy unknown to modern science, a blend of elements that shouldn't naturally exist together. Even more disturbing, it emitted a low-frequency vibration detectable only by specialized sensors. It was alive, in a way. When the engineers examined the carvings again, one symbol stood out: a spiral surrounding a circle, with light radiating from its core. It was drawn above the slab in every sequence. Dr. Liang stared at it for a long time before finally saying what everyone else was too afraid to admit. This isn't just a burial site, it's a containment. The realization sent a chill through the room. Had they just uncovered something ancient, or something that was never meant to be disturbed? Whatever it was, it had remained sealed for thousands of years beneath a sinkhole no one could explain. And now, for the first time, it was awake.